years ago, our founder, Dr. Smedley, said, Toastmasters is the only organization dedicated to the individual. We work together to bring out the best in each other and then apply those skills to help others. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, what an auspicious occasion today, the 92nd anniversary of Smedley Chapter 1, the very first ever Toastmasters Club. Did you know wherever that club is located, that district becomes Founders District? For those of you in District 100, just get the club to move north of Bell Road, and you could become Founders District instead of District 100. What do you think? Dr. Smedley still guides us in all we need to know. Toastmasters is dedicated to the individual. This is where we apply our learned skills to help others. This is the essence of service leadership. We find we use this both in and out of Toastmasters. Of course, our core values, integrity, respect, service, and excellence, are the guideposts for all we do. While I come to you as the International Director, my story starts like all of yours at that first club meeting. For me, Chat Riverside in District 12 in 2008. Since I was the ranking county staff member at the meeting, I was immediately elected as club president. My service leadership journey began. It really began at the second meeting where I was assigned to give my icebreaker speech. We had 25 county employees in the club, but one of them was one of the managers in a department that I oversaw as deputy director of the health department. His name is Brian. Brian was assigned to be my evaluator on that icebreaker speech. And I don't know who was more nervous, Brian for having to evaluate his boss's boss, or me and having Brian evaluate me in front of all those people. We remembered those core values. Even though we didn't know what they were, we had all given that pledge. But in service to each other, I did my icebreaker, and Brian actually gave an evaluation that followed the Toastmasters method. What I did well, an item or two to improve, and encourage me for my next speech. I was so proud of him. It was fantastic. What I'd like to tell about that story is how humbling the experience is in Toastmasters, about the upside-down pyramid, that here it was, the leader was being served, I was being served, never get that quite right, but I was the leader, and Brian was doing the evaluation, but as the leader, I was really in service to the organization because we let the Toastmasters values guide us in what we did. 3 years later, Brian was lucky enough to be an area governor in Division C, and he became distinguished. I like to think that second meeting made all the difference in his Toastmaster career. About a year later, the area governor convinced me to be a Toastmaster for a speech contest. After that event, a man came up to me, turned out to be Tom Jameson, a recent past district governor, and he says, "Michael, we have plans for you." Now, I didn't know exactly what that meant. Until a few days later, the area governor called me up and said, "Wouldn't you like to be an area governor?" As it so happens. We all know about Tom. He's always on the lookout for another leader. Who can come next? He always sees the good in another person. Now, I had no idea what an area governor did, but I did say yes. And that's where I really learned about the core values of service leadership. Looking for the potentials of others. Asking, offering to assist. How can we help? What do you need? And Tom's been a mentor to me ever since. Now, I'd like to tell one story, many stories I could tell, but of my area governor time. But At one of the very first contests that I had as area governor, my co-contest chair happened to be Kent Peterson, later to be a district governor in our own district. One of my assignments was to bring the bagels on Saturday morning. And sure enough, I'd ordered the bagels, had them sliced, brought the bagels and cream cheese, and when I showed up at the venue, Kent looked at me in shock. Oh my God, you actually brought the bagels. Well, of course, Kent, what, you assigned me to do it. He goes, but no one ever does that. And he'd already brought his own food as a backup, because you know Kent, there's a double and triple backup. But it was so interesting here that as a peer, of course we serve each other. It isn't just the top serving the bottom or the bottom serving the top, but the peers serve each other as well in Toastmasters. And that truly can be the essence of service leadership as well. And I'd like to think that his respect for me continues to this day because I brought bagels to an area contest.
Yeah.
Never underestimate the power of food when it comes to Toastmasters. I also learned that compared to our professional life, and I work for the county, the Toastmasters and county government are the exact opposite. Well, in the county, we do serve our constituents. Not many actually see it that way. But are we actually providing service leadership in government? I like to think now that Toastmasters has taught us how to do that. That the group I lead understands what our goals are. There's a case where Toastmasters has moved over, and maybe we can show parity between Toastmasters and our professional lives as we learn to serve our constituents and we serve our members. And again, Toastmasters does not have the typical employee-employer roles, as we saw. The leaders serve the members, not the members serving the leaders, which is always good to keep in mind. And those questions that we always need to remember to ask. What do you need, and how can I help? I've said that more in my years in Toastmasters than I said it in my whole life put together. Well, a few years later, I was lucky enough to be elected to the top 3, and I was in Cincinnati, Ohio in 2013. Halfway through the district leader training, our lieutenant governor of marketing at the time, Esther Fatla, later to be a President's Distinguished District Governor, said to me, Michael, are you serious about this whole leadership thing? Because we learned in our program now that you need to allow us to do our job. We'll keep you informed, but we don't need you to tell us how to do it. We now know how to do it, and you have to trust us and our team that we'll do the job. And Kent stood there, nodded his head, like what she said. Now, that was my year to be district governor. That's my initial reaction. You only get 1 year. But I took a deep breath, because we'd all been through the same training. And I had to say, okay, Esther, I got it. We'll set a schedule for you to keep us all informed, but you run with what you do in your lieutenant governor of marketing and your team, and we'll make that work. Now, did I really want to say that? Not a chance. Because I wanted to call her every day. Where are we at? What are we doing? How's it going? Instead, I had to wait for our Monday conference calls to find out how we did and what was going on. And then she let me know when I was supposed to show up at a demo meeting or a launch meeting or a charter meeting. And I would dutifully show up as she instructed. And we had a very successful year. But even I, who know about delegation and do it every day at work in Toastmasters, I had to learn that it really wasn't my year. It was all of our years. Service leadership. Was I serving Esther, or was Esther serving me? No, we're really serving our members and future members. Some of us were in Kuala Lumpur when Dhananjaya won the World Championship of Public Speaking. And he has, of course, that famous line that we all still say, I see something in you. Perhaps he was channeling Dr. Smedley, who said, leadership is the capacity to look ahead, think ahead, plan ahead, and then influence other people to go ahead with the plan. 2 years ago, when I was immediate past district governor, I was appointed chair of the nominations committee. I was reminded of everything Tom Jameson had taught me as I look for future leaders to be elected to the positions. We had one candidate for Lieutenant Governor of Marketing, but we really needed a second because I think that all districts are strengthened by competition at that first level of the top three. Now, I had noticed that David Carpenter was showing up at all the contests, that he was helping out, that he was a great role model for service leadership. I'm not sure he'd ever heard that term, but I called him up and I said, I want to talk to you, let's go to Starbucks. And we went to Starbucks in Riverside. And he doesn't even drink coffee, but he showed up. And we talked, and I said, David, I see something in you. I want you to run for Lieutenant Governor of Marketing, and here's why. Here's what I saw in you. And he looked at me like, no one's ever talked to me this way before. I'm a machinist. I don't supervise anyone. I go to work. I show up at contests. I do. You want me to be? He was really shocked. Almost as shocked as Cindy Carpenter was when he told her what I'd asked. In fact, she called me up. It's like, what are you doing? What are you seeing? I go, trust me on this. I see something there. Now, what was interesting, David ran a great campaign. He didn't happen to win. But in August, when the one who won, Lieutenant Governor of Marketing, resigned his position, Esther picked David to become the Lieutenant Governor of Marketing. I looked like a genius. Certainly not. David stepped up when he had to step up. And I was so proud to be on stage with him this year in Washington, D.C., when he was recognized as the President's Distinguished Lieutenant Governor, Club Growth Director, and got his plaque from the International President. A coffee at Starbucks. Look what you do. What happened is just 14 or 18 months later. That's what service leadership is about, seeing what you need, seeing those values in someone else. So what is our role in service leadership? How do we best serve our members, our clubs, our community? Our role, we always are looking for future leaders. We're looking for those people that are curious, teachable, willing to take a chance, who see themselves as part of a bigger picture. Those informal leaders who can inspire others to take action. Pay attention everywhere you go. Who steps up? Who do you talk with? Who, when you invite them to a meeting or an event, show up? Of course, many future leaders find themselves. They have their own self-belief, they generate their own excitement, and they're looking for personal growth. They may not know it. It may take you to help unlock that for them. Well, we owe it to Toastmasters. Look for those leaders in our midst. Remember what we learned from Dr. Smedley. We help ourselves first. We find our own voice. Then we help others to find theirs. Serve others by serving ourselves. Work with others. Bring out the best. Who in this room today is that future leader? At the club, at the district, and even international director in 2 years when my term is up. Here's to another 92 years, Smedley Chapter 1. Mr. Toastmaster.